This is a portion of a speech given by Bill Clinton in 1992 at the Democratic National Convention. It is his acceptance speech um, for the nod to run for the presidency of the United States of America. When I ran for president this year, for one reason, and one reason only, I wanted to come back to this convention and finish that speech I started 4 years ago. Last night, Mario Cuomo taught us how a real nominating speech should be given. He also made it clear why we have to steer our ship on a new course. Tonight I want to talk with you about my hope for the future, my faith in the American people, and my vision for the kind of country we can build together. One sentence in the platform we built says it all. The most important policy America can have is the expanding entrepreneurial economy of high-wage and high-skilled jobs. And so, in the name of those who do the work and pay the taxes, raise the kids, and play by the rules, in the name of the hard-working Americans who make up our forgotten middle class, I proudly accept your nomination for the presidency of the United States. I am a product of that middle class, and when I am president, you will be forgotten no more. We meet at a special moment in history, you and I. The Cold War is over. Soviet communism has collapsed, and our values, freedom, democracy, individual rights, and free enterprise, they have triumphed all over the world. And yet, just as we have won the Cold War abroad, we are losing the battle for economic opportunity and social justice here at home. Now that we have changed the world, it is time to change America. I have news for the forces in greed and defenders of the status quo. Your time has come and gone. It's time for a change in America. Tonight, 10 million of our fellow Americans are out of work. Tens of millions more work harder for lower pay. The incumbent president says the unemployment always goes up a little before a recovery begins. But unemployment only has to go up by one more person before a real recovery can begin. And Mr. President, you're that person. This election is about putting power back in your hands and putting government back on your side. It's about putting people first. Tonight, as plainly as I can, I want to tell you who I am, what I believe, and where I want to lead America. I've never met my father. He was killed in a car wreck 3 months before I was born, driving from Chicago to Arkansas to see my mother. After that, my mother had to support us. So we lived with my grandparents for a while she went back to Louisiana to study nursing. I can still see her clearly through the eyes of a 3-year-old, kneeling at the railroad station and weeping as she put me back on the train to Arkansas with my grandmother. She endured that pain because she knew her sacrifice was the only way she could put me and give me a better life. My mother taught me. She taught me about family and hard work and sacrifice. She held steady through tragedy after tragedy, and she held her family, my brother and I, together through the tough times. As a child, I watched her go off to work each day, even when time wasn't always easy being a single mother. As an adult, I watched her fight breast cancer, and again she taught me a lesson in courage. And always, 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 she taught me to fight. That's why I fight to create high-paying jobs so that parents can afford to raise their children today. That's why I'm so committed to make sure every American gets the health care that saved my mother's life, and that women's health care gets the same attention as men's. That's why I'll fight to make sure women in this country receive the respect and dignity they deserve, whether they work in the home, out of the home, or both. You want to know where I get my fighting spirit? It all started with my mother. Thank you, Mother. I love you. When I think about opportunity for all Americans, I think about my grandfather. He ran a country store in our little town of Hope. There were no food stamps back then, so when his customers, whether they were black or white, who worked hard and did the best they could, came in with no money, well, he gave them food anyway. He just made a note of it. So did I. Before I was big enough to see over the counter, I learned from him to look up to people other folks looked down on. My grandfather had just a grade school education, but in that country store, he taught me more about equality in the eyes of the Lord than all my professors at Georgetown. More about the intrinsic worth of every individual than all the philosophers at Oxford, and more about the need for equal justice under the law than all the jurists at Yale Law School. If you want to know where I come by my passionate commitment of bringing people together with disregard for race, that all started with my grandfather. I've learned a lot from another person too, a person who for more than 20 years has worked hard to help our children, paying the price of time to make sure our schools didn't fail them, and doing it all while building a distinguished law career and being a wonderful and loving mother. That person is my wife. Hillary taught me. She taught me that all children can learn, and that each of us has a duty to help them do it. So if you want to know why I care so much about our children and our future, it all started with Hillary. Hillary, I love you. Frankly, I'm fed up with the politicians in Washington lecturing the rest of us about family values. Our families have values, but our government doesn't. I want an America where family values live in our actions, not just our speeches. I was raised to believe the American dream was built on rewarding hard work, but we have seen folks in Washington turn the American ethic on its head. For far too long, those who play by the rules and keep the faith have gotten the shaft, and those who cut corners and cut deals have been rewarded. People are working harder than ever, spending less time with their children, working nights and weekends at their jobs instead of going to PTA and Little League, and their incomes are going down, their taxes are going up, and the costs of health care, housing, education, and food are going through the roof. Our people are pleading for a change, but government is in the way. It has been hijacked by privileged private interest. It has forgotten who really pays the bills around here. It has taken more of your money and given you less in return. We have got to go beyond the brain-dead politics and give our people the kind of government they deserve. A government that works for them. The president ought to be a powerful force in progress. But right now, I know how President Lincoln felt when General McClellan wouldn't attack the Civil War. He asked him, "If you're not going to use your army, may I borrow it?" And so I say, George Bush, if you won't use your power to help America, step aside, and I will.